A New York judge has ordered JPMorgan to turn over more records of its CEO, Jamie Dimon, in a lawsuit by the U.S. Virgin Islands. The island's government says the bank helped aid the late Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking operation by keeping him as a client. The order comes on the heels of court filings by JPMorgan that instead say the bank's former executive, Jes Staley, is to blame for the bank's Epstein ties. Yahoo Finance's Alexis Keenan is here to join us now and to break it all down for us.
Yeah, so this is one of two cases that JPMorgan is defending in federal court in New York. Both of them allege that in some capacity, the bank aided Epstein's ability to continue this, the late Epstein, I should say, his sex trafficking operation that went on for decades. Now, the plaintiffs say that JPMorgan should have identified evidence of this wrongdoing by Epstein and that the bank also benefited from the client relationship that they had with him. Now, yesterday, a case brought by the U.S. Virgin Islands government. In that case, the judge ordered JPMorgan to turn over more documents belonging to CEO Jamie Dimon. And what's puzzling or interesting about that order is that the time frame for these documents, they're after the time that JPMorgan had already canceled Epstein as a client. They had already given up on him. And that time frame is from 2015 to 2019, whereas Epstein was a client of the bank from 2000 to 2013. Now, the other case, it's brought by a woman who is identified in a purported class action as Jane Doe number 1. She alleges that she was abused by Epstein. Now, all of this, though, comes right after earlier in the week, JPMorgan goes on the offensive and files in both of these cases a third-party complaint saying, no, it's not us, it's not the bank that is responsible, if there's any responsibility in these cases at all, but instead it's our former wealth manager, Jes Staley, who was an employee of the bank for some time. Now, JPMorgan is saying in these two complaints that they are entitled to reimbursement if there is a judgment or damages entered in either of these cases. In its complaint, the bank says it denies all liability. It says at no point did Staley disclose to JPMorgan, nor did JPMorgan know about Staley's personal activities. In a statement to Yahoo Finance, the bank goes on to say that the plaintiffs have made absolutely troubling allegations concerning Staley. And if those are true, right, we don't know if they're true. These are just allegations at this point, that he should be held responsible. At the time, the bank says we could not have imagined any of our employees would engage in the type of conduct alleged.
Personal conduct is one thing. If there was some sort of financial relationship between the two men, that is another. I mean, and I think this speaks to not just the issue at the bank, but a bigger issue in corporate America, which is oversight of employees, particularly high-level employees like Staley was at JPMorgan. And I don't know if this case sort of has implications broader than that, depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could hypothesize that perhaps there's less oversight when they're high-level employees at a company. I think certainly these days we all expect that there's some level of monitoring of our communications and what we do at work. And look, there is vicarious liability. It's a concept in law where an employer can be held responsible for the acts of the employee. But that's when the acts of the employee are within the scope of that employee's work. It has to be within the scope of their job. And what JPMorgan is saying here is that the conduct that they're alleging, that the plaintiffs are alleging Staley engaged in, they say, well, if that happened, that was far outside the scope of his work, and therefore he would be the one to blame, not us.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this one goes. Thank you so much, Alexis. Appreciate it.